Disclaimer.
What, you know what, just to be safe thing you did end up saving your ass later. I had a friend who died of cancer aged 40. Whenever I feel embarrassed or that I'm overreacting about a possible issue, I imagine how much she would yell at me for not getting something checked out for a stupid reason. Please, people out there, if you ever feel silly about going to the doctor, remember that Jess would yell at you to get out there and get it looked at, because she doesn't want you to go through what she went through, just because you were embarrassed. She wants you to live. $5 breakage insurance on a rental surfboard. Broke that fucker clean in half in my first 10 minutes. I wonder if it was a ploy by the rental business, knowing their boards were liable to break and therefore make more money on customers without insurance. I would dare say the money made from people using and returning the board in the same condition whilst paying the $5 for ease of mind would outweigh the insurance claim when they can just pay $300, or whatever price surfboards are, to replace the one that will inevitably break over time. Not my ass, but I was getting ready for school whilst Mum was vomiting in the bathroom. She said it was just a stomach bug and to just go to school, but mentioned her arm hurt. Something didn't sit right, so I called the ambulance from downstairs. They arrived and took her into the ambulance. She then proceeded to have 3 cardiac arrests and needed defibrillated each time. A double bypass later and she was up and about within a month. Paramedics told me she would have died 5 minutes after I left if I hadn't called. Not my ass, but my mom's. She and I were home alone and I was getting ready to go to a party. I came upstairs and found her with the carbon monoxide detector in pieces on the coffee table. She said it was beeping, and apparently once years ago in our last house one was malfunctioning and giving a false alarm, so I guess she just assumed it was happening again. I shrugged it off and continued getting ready. I was about to leave, but something was nagging at me. She was insisting it was fine. After some arguing with her, I said, "No, we are calling the fire department." So I did. They came, and the levels of carbon monoxide were so high in the basement, they said anyone sleeping down there would be dead already. Our cats were vomiting from the poisoning and we didn't realize. I guess the filter on the furnace was so clogged it was pumping out carbon monoxide. One of the firefighters pulled me aside and said if I hadn't called I likely would have come home to my mom dead in her bed. Me and my siblings almost never were. One night before we were born, obviously, my mom complained that the furnace wasn't working cause it was too cold. My dad went into the basement to check it out. After a few minutes my mom went to see why he wasn't back. He had passed out in the basement, and she ended up passing out in the basement. Somehow my dad regained consciousness and pulled my mom back upstairs. Turns out a raccoon had built a nest in the furnace vent, and the basement had been filling up with carbon monoxide. Edit, this was back in the mid-late 70s. There was a case a few years ago in my country. 2 siblings are celebrating a birthday party with a couple of friends in their garden shed. At one point in the night, the DIY pipe exhaust of the energy generator falls over without anyone noticing. Next day the father wonders why they sleep so long and decides to go check on them. He finds both his kids along with 4 other friends dead. According to the medical personnel, they must have died within minutes. Father also gets charged with negligent homicide in 6 cases since he built the construction in a reckless and unprofessional way while ignoring warning signs about using it in closed rooms. Lived in Baltimore at the time. Pulled up outside my place after getting off a late shift and had to get a backpack out of my trunk before going in. I noticed a group of teenaged kids hanging out on the corner and thought nope. Called my roommate to come watch me walk to the door. About 10 minutes later a girl comes running down the street bleeding, saying she got jumped by the group of kids for no reason. Stay alert out there, y'all. I was in a similar situation a few years ago and I decided to ignore my gut. And you know what happened? I got jumped and mugged. If something feels off, there's a good chance it is. Everybody should read The Gift of Fear. It's sometimes hard to listen to that gut feeling, because we feel the need to stay polite and unfazed in public, even when our gut is telling us to run away. This book helped me legitimize that gut feeling. Edit, it's written by Gavin de Becker. I was in Baltimore, supposed to be meeting a buddy. As I'm walking up the street, a group of 4 or 5 18-ish-year-old walking in the opposite direction saw me and turned and started walking at me. I saw a door to a strip club called Sherry's 5 feet away. So I went in. It worked. I didn't get jumped that day. First time I was ever in a strip club. Dancers were pregnant and had scars from bullet holes and stab wounds. Got the hell out, jumped in my car, and never went back. My dad lost his glasses once. He was going to just use his old prescription but last minute decided to just go to the optometrist anyway in case something changed. Turns out he had a tear in his retina and was booked for surgery within 24 hours. It was bad enough they said he probably would have gone blind really soon had they not caught it when then did. Was watching my toddler nephew and he'd found a metal straw somewhere in the house and started playing with it. He was just tapping stuff and waving it around, but I just read a story on Reddit about a woman who got completely fucked up by a metal straw when she fell and it impaled her face, so I took the metal one from nephew and gave him a soft, squishy silicone one to play with instead. I'm not exaggerating when I say less than 5 minutes later, he fell like toddlers do and I saw the silicone straw all smushed into his cheek. I had to just sit for a while after that, lol. Not me, bit a coworker. Was trying to separate some railroad ties with a crowbar as part of his yard work for the day and when it popped a nail flew and embedded itself in one of the lenses of his safety glasses he threw on because he had them for work. He keeps them on his desk as reminder. PPE is not just for the workplace, folks. I used to work for a recycling company collecting old fridges and freezers and packing them in a lorry to take to London to the big recycling plant. Picking up fridges was heavy work and an average of around 135 plus fridges a day we'd collect and have to lift into the lorry. I picked up a tall fridge and basically did a semi-throw to get it up into the lorry and a small shard of something flew directly into my eyeball. No safety goggles in a very dusty, dirty environment, so all day I was rubbing my eye as it felt sore and something like dust was there, but no amount of washing with water or rubbing it helped. That night ended up going to emergency ward at the hospital and they look at said eyeball which by now is bruised from my constant rubbing and liking worse for wear. After tests and having purple type dye put into my eye, they said I had scratched my cornea with whatever hit my eyeball. They were talking about getting surgery to limit long-term damage etc., but gave me eye drops and a topical cream and said to return in a few days for follow-up. Luckily that helped heal the eye and they said no more damage etc. and to finish eye drops and use safety goggles. I was very lucky and at 47 years of age still get 20/20 vision with eye tests. If there is safety equipment, use it. Normally I'm pretty impressionable and cave to peer pressure, but this one time when I was younger I was hanging with my friends and a couple of older high school guys I'd only met that day. The girls were all fawning over them, but I could tell they were idiots. When they all wanted to go for a drive with the guys, I thought nah, I don't trust these guys and I think it's best I just call my parents and go home. I got a call the next morning from one of the girls who was passenger. One of the high school boys was driving, they'd had a serious crash and one of the girls wasn't wearing her seatbelt and hit her head on the dash and was in a coma for 6 months. She was in intensive care and rehabilitation for years. Still can't believe of all the days I decided not to go with the flow, it probably saved my life. Terribly sad about my friend. We were really close, but she never came right and her personality changed. I still wonder how successful she might have been and if we'd still be friends if that hadn't happened to her. Really sad. Yeah, life is crazy like that. I had my first job at a fast food place. I quit the second day, asking my friend to pick me up because I just didn't want to work there. I wanted to do something else. I would have been working night shift. Fast forward 2 weeks, a guy goes there during the shift, robs the place with 2 workers there, an older lady and a teen girl. He then walks them to the back to get money out of a lockbox or something. Then shoots them both in the head, killing them. Now, I don't know if I would have been working on that exact same night had I stayed, but thinking about it still haunts me for multiple reasons. Like, clearly, I could be dead, but I can't help but wonder if I were there, would he have just changed his mind and go somewhere else because he didn't want to deal with 3 people? Probably not. But I still can't help but wonder. So yeah, I never want to work anywhere where customers can interact with me. Hell, I don't want to work with anyone, which is why I'm self-employed, but if I had to work somewhere, I'm not working retail. Save the GPS location of my vehicle on Google Maps before exploring a national forest with a road trip buddy. We grabbed some fishing poles and head out towards the nearest water location on our map to hopefully catch a couple fish. Turns out it was a swamp, not a lake, and we got so incredibly turned around it could have ended very badly. We really didn't go that far in from where we parked, but somehow ended up on the other side of the swamp without realizing it. Drizzling rain, mosquitoes, bear tracks, and the sun started going down before we found the car. Without the GPS coordinates saved, it would have been a cold, wet night in the woods at a minimum, and more than likely a search and rescue required situation. Snow chains at the bottom of the mountain. A bunch of cars passed me on a clear road on the way up with several warnings all the way up. I saw a local throwing on chains with no snow in the area. I decided to be safe and put them on. 30 minutes later, I was in one of the worst snow driving conditions I've ever seen. Whiteout conditions in a snowstorm that eventually resulted in the complete shutdown of the roads. I passed car crash after car crash with just enough traction to feel somewhat comfortable moving 15 miles an hour. Anyone heading to Tahoe needs chains and chains that fit. Don't fuck around. I don't care if you have a four-wheel drive. Driving through Tahoe and Mammoth during snowstorms is no joke. Literally sunny with no clouds to blinding white darkness in an hour. Had my boat trailer bearings repacked by the boat repair shop/dealer before I went on a trip that I had to tow it for 400 plus miles. I usually repack the bearings myself, but figured I'd have the pros do it since I had a long haul ahead of me. The day before I left, I decided to double-check that the bearing case was full of grease. Without it they would overheat and I'd be F***ked royally and stranded with a high risk of a wheel actually coming off the trailer if I didn't notice it in transit. There was no grease at all in the bearing case on any of the four wheels. I would have been lucky to make it 20 miles before something serious happened. Also, this has been a habit for decades: pat my pocket to make sure my keys are in my pocket before closing the locked house door, my car door, etc. One day I was attempting to make karaoke for the first time, a kind of Filipino fried mochi, and after I popped them in the oil, I settled in and watched them carefully. I never wear an apron whilst cooking, but for some reason I figured why not this time, and as soon as I stepped out of range of the fryer, they all exploded. Turns out, karaoke can form an impermeable shell when fried, so pressure built up inside until they popped and sprayed hot oil all over the kitchen. Of course, I was safely away reaching for an apron and was completely dumbfounded. Made sure to punch some holes in all subsequent batches. Of course, once I cleaned the kitchen, I ate them and they were delicious. 10 out of 10, highly recommend. In college I would always wear my helmet while riding my motorcycle, but the majority of the time I wouldn't wear my riding jacket because it was too bulky to carry around between classes. One day it was a bit too cold out for just a hoodie, and I decided to deal with the bulk of the jacket and wear it. Ended up laying the bike down at 40-ish mph and got slammed into the road hard on my right side. My shoulder was sore, but no lasting damage. Can't imagine how it would have turned out if I didn't have the extra shoulder padding. Filling up my ridiculously large 2.5-liter water bottle yesterday, a pipe burst in my building last night and we still don't have running water 20 hours later, but I still have my bottle. Make sure you have an emergency supply of water in your house. If you are here for the first time and you like the video, like it. Subscribe to support me and hit the bell so you don't miss new videos. You can also watch other videos by going to the channel. I will be pleased if you like them.